The beauty of one light and bounce light. It's found in nature. In many environments, you are often dealing with one dominant light, and the secondary lighting is usually reflected light. In classic portraiture, a good start is to position the light at 45 degrees. A lot of the classic portrait painters would position the light 45 degrees down. Leonardo da Vinci cited that was the classic position for best defining the human face, 45 degrees light, key light source. 45 degrees off axis from the nose and 45 degrees up, which basically gives you, it's really called a Rembrandt because it gives you the little triangle of light. If you're using a hard light, it will give you a little triangle of light on the shadow side cheek. Because the light's quite relatively high up, you have a nose shadow that drops down the shadow side cheek, and you have a little triangle of light just above that, just underneath the eye. And that's your classic Rembrandt lighting. The classic Hollywood beauty lighting would be the paramount or butterfly light, and the key light's positioned right over the lens. Softened but not too much. And with aging actresses, they want the underside of their chin to go dark. It hides the aging signs of the chin and neck. Personally, I really like the high key. It can make the eye sockets go dark. However, in older people, the teeth can be withdrawn and they can also go dark, which is something to be mindful of. So sometimes if your key's quite high and the subject drops the chin, that will produce dark eye sockets and problems with seeing the teeth. And you can either lower your key height or just ask them to move their chin up. The chin up, also looking slightly up, will hide the double chin and any jowls they might have. So, one thing to factor into all of this is you position the key light with your portrait, and if we're shooting motion picture and things are moving, then people are going to be turning into shadows, turning into light, moving through light into shadows, changing environment conditions. The dynamics of the movement will add another element to the lighting. So when you're lighting your face, and there's going to be movement as well, that's another element to be considered. We spoke about the importance of working with the key stroke modelling light and getting the angle just right with that. Experimenting, having a look at the higher angle, the lower angle, coming closer to the axis of the lens, moving away from the axis of the lens, to really understand what the features are of the face that you're working with and trying to get the best out of them. So it's worth spending time on getting that angle right. Once you set your first light, then you're in a position to either accept that that's all you want or to move on to the second light. So the second light, there's a certain beauty, I think, with one light and bounce. Oftentimes in nature you have your hard light coming from an angle, of a high angle, and then you have your soft light coming from above, and then you have light bouncing up from below as well. So you have the sort of ambience of soft light around, and then you have the hard light cutting through all of that and defining the modelling. So normally when you're in like a location situation, you're dealing with the bounce of the walls around you as well. So you're never really, in effect, really just dealing with one light. You're dealing with one light and bounce by definition. When you're in a studio situation, you get to control that. So you set your one light up, and then you decide where you want your bounce. Now you can use a second source for the bounce to give you more control, or you can just bounce it back, providing the direction of the key light is actually enough to bounce back. The beauty of one light and bounce light. It's found in nature. In many environments, you are often dealing with one dominant light, and the secondary lighting is usually reflected light. So I think that's such a beautiful principle. So it's like the sun and the sky, right? The sun is the dominant lighting, and the reflected light is the sky. It's something poetic and beautiful about that. It's really quite beautiful. So I like to kind of translate that through to studio lighting as well. Often I like to use one dominant light, which is the modelling light. Now that could be a soft light in itself, or a hard light. And then the remainder of the lighting, I usually personally like to use reflected light. So what I'll do, for example, for backlight, is I'll reflect a light into soft silver or into white polyboard. For a fill light, I'll reflect into white polyboard, and that's how I like to build lighting personally. So that's kind of a lot of where my ideas come from. I'm always looking at how the environment lights the human face, and then I'm finding a way to recreate that in the studio. So, like I say, it's the hard light creating modelling, it's reflected light creating shape, creating separation, and creating softness or fill to bring up the shadow detail. The thing about light sources, film lights, is film lights can tend to look like film lights. Now, particularly hard lights, you have to be careful with it because it can look too theatrical. You know, that could be what you want, you know, and that could be working, you know, that could be on brief. But I personally like a combination of things. I like to use a hard light, and then I like to mix it up with softer light as well. And let's not forget the beauty of just using one soft light and seeing how a human face responding to a soft light, graduating from the highlights, softening into the shadows. Let's not forget how beautiful that is. Many artists base their whole careers on just studying that one phenomena. They'd sit their models next to a window, and all they'd do is they'd paint their models from day to day, painting them, endlessly fascinated by what that light would bring. A north soft light coming through a window with a model sat next to it. I mean, that's arguably some of the most beautiful lighting you're ever going to see. Very, very simple.